Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar this morning. This week's topic is Embridge Recruitment Integration. I'm Tracy Adams, and I'm the Marketing Manager for Embridge Consulting. And shortly, my colleagues Faye and Thomas will be joining us to take you through the rest of the webinar. Before we jump into the session, I would just like to do a little bit of housekeeping for today's webinar. The webinar today is being recorded and a copy of the webinar will be available to you. We will be holding a Q&A session at the end of the demonstration and enter your questions, and we'll try our best and cover all of those or as many of those questions as we possibly can within our allocated time this morning. To help us improve future webinars, a survey will pop up at the end of the session, so please do take a very quick moment just to provide some feedback to us. For those of you that haven't worked with Embridge before, I believe most of you have attended one of our webinars, but for those of you that are new, I'd like to give you a very brief overview of our organisation. But Embridge has been working with Unit 4 Business World since around 2009 and became a Unit 4 partner in 2015. Since then, we have rapidly expanded to become one of the leading strategic Unit 4 partners in the UK. Embridge has always been passionate about delivering an end-to-end service for clients, and our current developments in the marketplace follow this route. The screen that you're seeing now just gives you a very brief overview of just some of the services that we offer. So in 2020, we plan to expand the packages we offer to clients for Unit 4 application support. Watch this space because we've got some exciting news in that particular area. We will continue to develop our public training course schedule as well, and our new Business World training catalogue is available online. And that sort of brings me to development. Most of you are using HireServe ATS and also use the Unit 4 Business World application. We have worked as a partner to HireServe since 2017 and last year announced a formal reseller agreement with them. And since we have been working closely with them to develop the integration you are about to experience. So at this point, I'd like to introduce you to my colleagues, Faye and Thomas, who will take you through the next part of this webinar. Faye.
Good morning, everybody. Let me just take a moment to take over the screen and share. Okay. Good morning, everyone. As Tracy said, I'm the product manager for Embridge, and we've been working collaboratively with HireServe to develop a number of solutions which will make the most of existing APIs and the development of new APIs to enhance the integration between Business World and the HireServe ATS. So today we're going to cover a bit of an overview for these solutions that are available today, focusing on our solution for integrating vacancies and synchronizing user records. We have Thomas available, who's going to be doing a demonstration of the product so you can see them brought to life. And we're going to outline the benefits of those solutions to you. We're also going to explain the development journey we've been on in terms of bringing those products to life, and also the plans with regards to not only those products and their own roadmap, but the future integration that we have planned. And as Tracy said, we'll be doing a Q&A session towards the end. Okay, so as I mentioned, we've been working closely with HireServe to look at ways in which we can develop solutions that will really enhance the integration between Business World and the HireServe ATS. There is some standard integration that's currently available, which you may or may not be utilising, but we've been looking at ways in which we can actually take that forward to offer enhanced solutions for our customers. The two areas that we're focusing on today in terms of our webinar are user synchronization and vacancies. As you can see, we have a real intent to actually make this area something that can really deliver value to our customers, shared by Business World and HireServe. So we're also looking at other areas which I'll talk about later with regards to our roadmap, which cross from recruitment reporting and making that visible within Business World, right through to synchronization of pick list values and attribute values. Okay, so taking our first product, which is user synchronization, This product will enable you to essentially allow Business World to be the master record for your users. So instead of going into HireServe and actually then maintaining user records in HireServe separately, we've developed a way in which we can join the two together. So the solution works on the basis of having a user-defined query within Business World, which you can define based upon the rules for your organisation, which will enable you to identify users that need to be created and maintained within the HireServe ATS. Now, this could include hiring managers or also members of the recruitment and the HR team. Excuse me. We've then developed an Intel agent which will actually run that query and trigger a bespoke server process. And that server process will then create the user record or update the user record or disable it within HireServe ATS. And that solution then supports single sign-on if that's applied within the HireServe ATS. So that really gives us a way of easily making sure that the user record in Business World is the master, and it can then update and maintain the user record within HireServe without any additional manual intervention. It introduces enhanced levels of governance and control in that way as well, so you know that the user records are being maintained automatically. So in order to bring that to life, I'm going to hand you over to Thomas now, who's going to do a demonstration of the product.
Hi everyone. So the user integration consists of a bespoke server process. We've created a server process that will link up to the HireServe ATS system using their API, and will pass along the key details to create a new user. It's a straightforward server process, passing the kind of details you'd expect, like username, email address, etc. It's a very straightforward process, and what we've done is integrated that with existing Business World processes, such as browsers and Intel agents, to basically create a streamlined process that will automatically synchronize any new users you create that should be added to the HireServe ATS environment, or vice versa to deactivate them. So if I just sort of create myself a new user that meets my criteria, and I should be clear that the criteria that you create is down to you, because we're using a browser and an Intel agent. You can set those criteria up as it suits you, so you can base that on a role or on specific users. You can base that however you want to set up your browser. That will determine the search criteria for your Intel agent to pass that through to the server process. So if I just add a user, so I've added a new user. So I have created a browser now that will look for any newly created users that match these criteria. So I can see it's picked up my new user, HireServe demo user 4. It's picked up the key information that is required by the server process, such as their email address, first name, last name, and user ID. And in the background now, I have that Intel agent set, ready to pick that up, so any minute now when the Intel agent kicks in, which might take a moment or two, it will automatically pick up the new addition to this browser, pass that over to the HireServe ATS. Now you can see I currently have 3 existing users on there. Once the Intel agent kicks in and passes that over, we'll see the 4th user come through. Now, while we're waiting for that, what I'll also do is show that you can use this to deactivate users. So I will, while we're waiting for that, select one of my existing users that's already active, and deactivate them. And then the same process will happen in reverse for one of our existing users. So just check that that's one of my users that's active. Yeah, so that's an active user. If I just park that user just now, save that change. Again, in the same manner to the new users, what I've done is created a a browser that looks for retired users. And that's picked up my HireServe demo user 1, who's now retired and should no longer be active in HireServe ATS. And Intel agent, so you can use whatever logic you want to create these browsers. As I've demonstrated here, I've done it based on active users and retired users or parked users that meet my particular criteria. But that can be set up however you want. You can easily pick up from the browser as you determine. You could look for specific roles. So as users are allocated to a role, they can be passed over to the HireServe ATS via our server process. We can now see if I update my HireServe users here, you can see, so my new user, for my demo user 4, they've been added to the system. My existing user 1, has now been deactivated. You can see that because it's been grayed out there. So that just shows a simple process of how, through those Intel agents and browsers, as you set up your users to whatever your criteria might be, that our server process will manage that and pass that over to the HireServe ATS to make whatever changes are necessary, whether that's adding a new user or whether that's removing a new user.
Okay, thank you for that, Thomas.
Okay.
So we've seen the user synchronization and the value that can add. As Thomas has said, it gives us real governance and control and reduces a manual step within the process and enables you to apply your logic in terms of who needs to be set up and when they need to be set up within the ATS solution. Okay, so moving on to our next solution, vacancies. The solution that we've developed is enabling you to use business world forms to request vacancies and then use the workflow within business world to manage the approval process. We've developed a customization which will then support the capture of free text, job summary details and person spec details actually against the form. We've also developed a bespoke screen which will enable you to map the fields from the form, all related data from the form as held in, for example, position relations, to the job classifications within the HireServe ATS. So this is the real power of the solution in terms of it enables you to develop your forms to meet your requirements and then flexibly map that data to the HireServe API as opposed to providing a fixed design solution. So if your forms were to grow and develop, the mapping screen enables you from a maintenance point of view to change that moving forward. It would also support different iterations of request forms for different purposes. A query within the solution will then identify when a vacancy has been approved via workflow, and as we've seen with the user solution, an Intel agent then runs the query and triggers a bespoke server process which we've developed, which will then create the vacancy within the HireServe solution. So in terms of kind of optimizing the solution and the API as it's available at the moment, we are utilizing probably 99% of what's available. One of the areas that we've identified as an enhancement, which we're identifying now isn't available within the current solution, is the ability to transfer documents. We identified it in our roadmap. So that would be the ability within a business world form to attach, for example, a person specification or a job specification, and then transfer that over to the HireServe ATS solution. But it's on our roadmap for delivery. One of the other areas that we're also looking at is the ability to replicate the pre-fill standard paragraph functionality, which some of you may be utilising within the HireServe ATS. So we'll see in the demonstration the ability to record free text information within a customised screen against the vacancy request form, but we're actually exploring ways in which we could actually enable you to define your standard paragraphs and then select from a pick list to pre-fill that rather than it being an input screen. Okay, so in order to bring that to life, I'm going to hand over to Thomas, who's going to do a demonstration of the vacancy solution.
So the vacancy customization is a bit more complicated than the user. It consists of several components. We have a core similar to the user. We have a server process which will take the information from your source form and pass that over to the HireServe ATS API and throw that up there with all the information that's been mapped out there. to facilitate that, there's two other pieces of customization. We have a mapping screen which lets you map out a profile to as Faye said, in a flexible manner. Lets you map out your source data from your form to the appropriate fields on the HireServe API in a flexible manner that is open to plenty of customization to suit your particular setup. To support that as well, like as Faye mentioned, we also have customization added on that can be added onto the forms itself to allow you to add some more in-depth information for job summary and job detail text. So as you can see here, I've got another Blue Peter style vacancy form that I've completed already. So this is all set out, this form, with all the details that are needed to be passed over to the HireServe ATS. In addition, I've got this extra customization here to add vacancy details that are not part of the standard form. As you can see, we can add, through our customization, more verbose, rich text in there to be passed over for the job summary and job description fields, and give you more flexibility of what kind of information you want to be passed over with your vacancy form. That can all be filled out with the form itself. Now, this is set up through our mapping screen. This is our mapping screen, and it looks quite complicated because there's a lot going on there, but it's actually quite a simple core concept. So it lets us map to the HireServe API. We create a profile, we can map to particular fields on the HireServe API by highlighting the HireServe field names here, and we can then find the source information on Aggresso. So in this case, we've mapped it to our form, as we've just seen, and we'll map the particular source, the HireServe fields, to our source table and source fields, and we can go through that process. This is a flexible process that can be mapped to pretty much anywhere in Aggresso. We can add and as many additional fields or categories as is needed in your particular implementation, and map it to a profile. And because we've done it through profiles, you can have as many profiles as you need. So if you need multiple profiles, that's fine. You can map out separate profiles all through this screen.
Just to add some clarity around why you might need different profiles. The reality is, within dynamic forms within Milestone 7, users have the flexibility to have a very flexible kind of data capture for their new requests. So for example, your vacancy request form may capture different information depending upon whether it's a new vacancy, brand new to the organisation, or if it's a replacement of an existing person. So for example, for replacement, you may set up your form to look for a person, and then it would then pull through all the information related to that current post holder's job, and that would form the basis of your vacancy request. Alternatively, it may be a brand new position, a new box on an org chart that you wish to add, and in which case you would set up your dynamic form to enable the support of input of information. Now that information, when you do it in that way, is captured in different FlexiField tables, and therefore the profile supports the ability to actually pass the information dependent upon where it's held. So in this case, we have a profile for new positions. So when the form is behaving dynamically to capture the input of new position information. And we have a profile as well for replacement of existing people when we need to find the information for a vacancy held in the flexi fields relating to that dynamic setup. So that just gives you a little bit of context in terms of why we might need different profiles.
Yeah, so it's very flexible. You can have as many profiles as you want. You can map them out completely differently as per your needs, as Faye's described. You know, good examples there. You can map that out completely independently of each other. You then pass that over to our server process. Now that can be set up with Intel agents as well, just as we should with the user. I haven't done that in this case because I'm just trying to avoid the workflow that we have set up on there. So I wanted to just push that through straight away for you. So I can, with our my pre-filled form, I can pass that server process request over to the HireServe.
Okay. Just as you're doing that, Thomas, one of the things that I want to stress with regards to the mapping, and one of the benefits that we think as a solution it will give to customers as well, is that not everything relating to the job has to be on the form. So the mapping, as Thomas kind of alluded to, enables you to capture 50% of a vacancy information on the form to really keep the input of vacancy requests simple for line managers, but then grab the rest of the information from somewhere else. So an example of that might be a position, for example. The line manager might be saying, well, actually, I need to initiate recruitment against this current position. They would select the position ID and it would pull through some basic information on the form. But in order to complete the classification required within the higher serve ATS, the mapping enables us to say, well, actually, we're only capturing 3 bits of information on the form. The rest of the information is going to come from the position relations setup. So, for example, the location, the line manager, any other information around requirements for that position, like DBS checks and so on and so forth, could come from somewhere else and not have to be on the form and actually input or display to the requesting manager. Thank you, Thomas.
Okay, so hopefully, this is my exciting test screens, and hopefully my new vacancy should now have come through. There we go. So that my new vacancy with the text that was pre-filled out for the descriptions, etc., has all come through and shown up on there. You can see all the details that I've put in there have come through. Okay.
And for the purposes
again, that vacancy will now be available. Sorry.
Yeah, for the purposes of the demonstration, we're displaying that directly onto the website, but the vacancy can come across in a draft format with a notification to recruitment to then check the details, for example, or complete it by indicating application forms to be associated with it, any killer questions that would be needed to apply to that vacancy before it's published onto your portals.
Of course, like I said, I've for expediency, I've cut through to publishing it straight away, so you can see that appear immediately on our test site there. But of course, that's configurable on your ATS site as to whether that's published immediately or not. So you can see my jobs appeared here on my list of jobs, and I've got full access to it now through the ATS, where all the details that were being mapped out from the form have come through to the job, including those job summary and job description text, as was filled out on our customization there for you. As I said, you can automate that through Intel agents again, so when your forms are completed and approved, that will automatically be posted through. I've run it manually in this case purely because I didn't want to have to go through the whole process with you right now and keep you waiting, but that's all business world functionality such as Intel agents and workflows will work with this, no problem, and give you whatever flexibility you need for your own processes.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Okay, so we've seen a demonstration of the solution and how we can use a business world standard form using the dynamic functions to then dynamically map that information from the form and then pass that over to the HireServe ATS. In terms of benefits for these solutions, we've been working collaboratively with HireServe in order to find ways in which we can actually streamline your recruitment processes. And I think these solutions are going some way in terms of doing that. They also offer improved data accuracy and controls. And by that, I mean, we have that governance that we saw with regards to the user record, but also we're able to use, in terms of vacancies, the limits of authority and the workflow approvals as already set up within Business World, as opposed to a less controlled approval process within the HireServe ATS, because we're able to use that hierarchy within Business World. Also negating any additional data maintenance and the risk that could be input incorrectly. So in terms of development journey, these products, as we've discussed today, are available and compatible with Business World Mastering 7 and approved for Unit 4 Cloud. We acknowledge that these products are new, and as a product development team, we've created an early adoption program. So these 2 products are available for what we're calling our early adoption program, and we can share much more information around what that means to anyone that would be interested after the webinar. But essentially, members of our early adoption program would receive a pre-released version of the product, and they would work with us for a defined period of time to help us mature and enhance the solution before it's available for wider release. The early adoption members would benefit from dedicated support throughout the early adoption programme, and a real opportunity to shape the final product, as well as discounted subscription fees on the solution itself. The early adoption programme we're hoping would start within the next few weeks, in actual fact, and with a planned wider release after the early adoption in March 2020. So in terms of solutions, we've outlined 2 today, users and vacancy integration, but that's not the end in terms of our investment in this area, and we're really passionate about doing what we can to enhance the integration between the 2 solutions. And so our roadmap includes 3 other solutions. One, looking at the applicant integration. There's currently standard applicant integration available, but we're looking at ways in which we can actually better enhance that and offer our users better flexibility in terms of the data that you can bring across, the format that you can bring it across, and also where you bring it across to. So at the moment, you're restricted to bringing it into the applicant master file, which only has a certain subset of data about employees. And we're looking at ways in which we can actually bring that across into the resource master file and actually kind of streamline the onboarding process. Other areas that we're looking at are pick list value synchronization. So classifications within HireServe ATS are mapped to or can be mapped to attribute values within Business World. And that will then support the vacancy solution that we've seen today. So if you create a new location value, for example, within Business World, and map that to location within HireServe, we can actually synchronize the maintenance of those values without any manual input. And the final areas that we have on our roadmap relates to recruitment reporting. So at the moment, all of our recruitment KPIs are available within HireServe ATS. We're actually looking at ways via dashboards and workspaces that we can actually bring that information into Business World to offer our HR users a holistic view of all of their KPIs, including recruitment. Okay. So that brings us to the end of the formal element of our webinar, and thank you for your time. I'm going to hand you over now to Tracy, who's going to facilitate a Q&A.
Thanks, Faye, and thanks, Thomas, for taking us through that demonstration. But we do have one question that has come through to us already. Now, the roadmap mentions the applicant interface. How will this be different to what is already available?
Okay, Thomas, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So, as Faye sort of mentioned, there's some limitations on the current sort of implementations of the applicant setup. What we plan to do is leverage the upcoming extension kit framework, which is a very flexible tool to give us much more control and of where we're putting the data, what we're doing with the data, to make a much more flexible, more customizable solution that will also be future-proof, because we'll be using Unit 4's latest framework in the extension kit, which is upcoming any minute now. So that's sort of our plan when it comes to the applicant's interface at the moment.
Yeah, just to add to that, the extension kit is Unit 4's extension kit, and it's currently within or starting an early adoption program itself run by Unit 4, and we as partners will be part of road testing that, and we will be looking at case scenarios, this being one, in terms of how we can utilise that functionality to deliver a real solution in this area.
Okay, thank you for answering that. We've got a further question. So for user management, do roles, e.g. recruiting manager or interviewer, need to be matched between Business World and eRecruiter, which is HireServe ATS?
The browser that you define will enable you to determine who comes across into the actual application, but they're quite limited in terms of how many roles are available within the HireServe ATS. So we have 2 roles, and the current API will support the integration of both for the creation of the appropriate record for hiring managers.
Thanks again for that. We've got a further question. How is the pricing structured? Is it by numbers of appointments, user numbers, or another method?
Okay, so if we're interested, we can certainly do a follow-up in terms of pricing, but it's going to be based on a subscription basis rather than calls or the amount of transactions that are used by the actual solution. So it's on a flat subscription basis, on a monthly basis.
Okay. I mean, that brings us, I believe, to all the questions that we've had that have come through. Do bear in mind that you can drop myself or Faye. I'd like to thank you all for attending the webinar this morning. We'll be holding a number of webinars over the coming months. Thank you, Thomas, for the demonstration, and thank you again, Faye, for your overview. If there's no further questions, then I'll bring the webinar to a close. Thank you.